Welcome to another episode of Get Boosted on Shot Callers Esports. I'm Eric Kummel, here with Matt Hempstead, whose predictions were only slightly better than mine last week. So
yeah, 2-2 is better than 1-3.
yeah,
that's not bad.
Only one better.
To be fair, not many people saw Misfits beating Fnatic. So.
Yeah, I mean, basically semis were kind of the opposite of quarters in a lot of ways. But we're going to be breaking down all the action from this week's semifinals in the LCS, and we'll be answering your questions later on the show, so make sure you're sending them in throughout the hour. I promise we will get to them. But yeah, quarters, there was upsets pretty much all over the place. I mean, and then semis, it kind of looked like it would start like that. It started with Misfits beating Fnatic, and you're like, oh boy.
That's right.
Here we go again. But then it kind of went more so as planned. No game fives, 2 sweeps, and I mean, even the Misfits Fnatic one, surprisingly, it was pretty much Misfits the whole way. Yeah, Fnatic did win a game, but Misfits was pretty much in control of that whole series.
Yeah, Misfits, again, after the Unicorns of Love series where they swept them, people were like, sure, they beat the Unicorns, but they've kind of been on and off. Not really sure if the Unicorns were just bad that series or if Misfits were actually good. But now against Fnatic, I would say Misfits are all of a sudden turned around. Sure, they were 6-7 during the regular season, but all of a sudden Alphari and Maxlor have that chemistry again, and they look fantastic across the board. So it's not just a fluke, the whole Unicorns of Love series. It was actually Misfits being dominant, and then against Fnatic, they continued to show that. Very impressive.
And I mean, Maxlor said in some interviews or whatever these pregame hype things are, that he thinks Alphari and himself are a better 2v2 than Soaz and Broxa, which, I mean, most people probably rolled their eyes at because those are pretty much the best duo in the top side of the jungle throughout the split, but they pretty much manhandled them in most of those games. And just looking at Soaz's player cam throughout that series, he was insanely tilted.
Yeah, I mean, the tilt factor was definitely in effect in this game. And I mean, for a lot of it, even in game 3, after he was starting to get camped, I'm like, all right, this is going to be a clean sweep because Soaz is legitimately unable to play right now. After he got ganked in the bot lane in game 3, in between like the Nexus turret, not Nexus turret, but the first inhib turret and the tier 2, he actually banged the table and was like all up in his hands, devastated. And then even in game 4, it definitely carried over. I'm sure they won that game 3, but Soaz was having a rough go.
Yeah, and I think teams, you've got to incorporate. Maybe you don't get a good objective control out of chasing someone that far, but you've got to incorporate the tilt factor.
Yep,
we're going to dive this guy because he will smash something and he will just be tilted. So you got to incorporate that, and Misfits did that. And they looked pretty bad in the mid to late game throughout most of the split, and somehow in the playoffs they have just flip the switch and know exactly what to do with the lead, and they're closing out these games pretty cleanly.
Yeah, because their weakness the entire split was that late game where, you know, it was almost a meme. Oh, Misfits are leading at 20 minutes. They'll still lose. Whatever. It doesn't matter. All of a sudden now, they'll go take that Baron, they'll find these picks, and they'll close it out relatively quickly. And their early game has been pretty dominant, especially with Maxlor getting involved early. And in game 1, his co-participation was 100% on that Zac. So, I mean, they've definitely turned things around, and they're going to the finals. That's pretty hyped.
Yeah, I don't think many people would have picked Misfits to go through Unicorns and Fnatic, dropping just 1 game during that stretch.
And they're at Worlds.
That's
locked in.
Wow. Not a lot of people were thinking that, but I mean, going back to this series, one of the key moments in that first game, as with a lot of these series in the playoffs, it comes down to these Baron fights.
Yeah.
And we got a clip from that first game, one of the Baron fights that was a pretty big decider in this one.
Yeah, and Fnatic kind of just forces it straight up in the face of Misfits. Sure, Hansama was kind of forcing down mid, and they think they might have a man advantage, but Alphari comes around the side. He kind of gets picked out here. But the key thing to note is that Power of Evil actually got a great stun onto Caps. The Black Show was actually late, and then the John Tornado knocked him up. So he's completely taken out of the fight. Sure, Alphari got knocked out in the backline, but Reckless didn't do any damage to anybody else. And from here, it's just Misfits putting on the chase. You're going to see Ignar and PoE flash over the Baron pit to make sure Reckless goes down. And the rest of the way, they're just going to chase Broxa completely out of the pit.
Yeah.
We want to secure this Baron, so Broxa, you're going to run all the way across the rift.
Yeah.
See you later. And then they're going to take this Baron, and from here they close out the game pretty handily.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much, they just need an advantage like that, and they've shown in these playoffs that they can close out those games. And it just felt like almost a little bit of disrespect throughout this series from Fnatic, almost like they were expecting regular season misfits and just kind of sitting there. They're like, they'll throw in the mid game. We just got to wait for that. They'll throw in the late game. We'll just, sit back a bit, wait for them to make their mistakes. And most of these games, misfits didn't make a mistake, and Fnatic lost. So it's just definitely a little bit of disrespect from Fnatic, I think.
Yeah, and there was a stat they showed on the broadcast where it was, everyone knows how good Fnatic was in the early game. Around 15 minutes, the goal differential was plus 1,500 or something. But they were trailing consistently against the Misfits in the semifinals, and they were just, again, sitting back. They weren't being proactive. It was very much reactive. And the one time they really did try to make plays early on ended up backfiring in game 2.
Yeah, and I mean, also, it's just, you look at some of the playmaking stuff that we've talked about. Ignar, he excels on guys like Blitzcrank, the hook-based champions where you can excel as a playmaker. And again, you saw that in this series, specifically some of these tower dives that Fnatic did go for with some of their over-aggression in some of these games. Again, we've got a clip where Ignar kind of displays what he can do on Blitzcrank with some crazy angles.
But this one wasn't even so much Ignar. It was Jesus there misses the stun on Tarek, and then Caps misses his chains on Hansama, so he's able to walk away. Now they overchase, which is going to set up Ignar here to get a great hook on Brock, so pretty much max range, take him out, and all of a sudden that turns this into, it was going to be first turret and a big advantage for Fnatic. Instead, it's a kill to Misfits, and things are going back their way. And then pretty much right after, Ignar just presses W, walks towards Jesus, and they take him down with the Ignite. So, yeah, it's Ignar being a great playmaker on this too, but I mean, this entire play basically gave an edge that Fnatic had, or was going to have with that first turret and probably a couple kills, into Misfits getting 2 kills of their own, and then turning the game around from there.
Yeah, and again, just kind of a bit sloppy there, basically, by Fnatic. I don't know, maybe some of that has to do with that bye week, but I mean, both teams in EU with the bye winning a combined 1 game in their sets. So,
not bad.
I mean, I think it's still up for debate whether or not that bye week is actually a positive thing to have in the playoffs. So, really in EU, it didn't work out so well. But, I mean, yeah, Fnatic, again, didn't play nearly up to what they've done throughout the split. But Misfits continue to look fantastic in these playoffs. I mean, pretty much across the board, everyone played super well for them in that set.
Yeah, but if you're Fnatic, you got to be so disappointed. You had an amazing split, fantastic regular season.
Renaissance split.
Yeah, it was, again, dominant pretty much the entire way. They dropped a couple of series, but overall, no big deal. And then they run into this team in the playoffs, one and done, and now they got to go through the Gauntlet to get to Worlds. That's not what you wanted at all after probably their second most dominant split in history.
Yeah, and there is still, I mean, a bit of hope for them. They are the final bosses in this Gauntlet.
Just got to win one.
Just got to win one best of, and you've got to think that they're pretty fired up after, the poor performance they put up in this series. But, I mean, that Gauntlet's looking pretty strong for EU still. Teams like Splice. I know UOL, maybe it's been a little questionable lately, but I think they're still a pretty strong team. That Gauntlet's going to be pretty tight. So,
yeah, we'll keep an eye on Splice.
Yeah, that's another team a lot of guys are favoriting in that Gauntlet because, they put up a heck of a fight against G2. A lot more than H2K. But we'll get to that series
H2K's later,
in a little bit. The second series on Saturday was CLG and Immortals. And,
oh, boy.
I believed in CLG.
That's why they lost.
That's why they lost. It's my fault. You got to have the low expectations for them. I thought they might be able to, kind of turn things around and get some fuel after that MV series, but they were pretty much outclassed across the board.
It was pretty ugly
in that series. I mean, game 1 had some back and forths and was, a tight fought contest, but I mean, I think the main mismatch was definitely Xmithy and Omar God in this set.
Xmithy had a rough start to game 1 too. He was kind of getting killed a lot, but man, Omar God at times looked just straight up awful. Even on these Maokai in game 1, he would try to make these engages with the twisted advance, and he would just be so far ahead of his team that he would die before the fight even started. And just, I don't know, he still looks like he doesn't belong on this team. The chemistry's not there. Maybe he's trying too hard to make a play when he shouldn't. But yeah, he was just caught out and died way too often. Didn't look good.
Yeah, and there was clearly just miscommunications in a lot of these games where either Omar or Afro were flash engaging on some of these team fights, and the rest of the team's just not there. They get popped instantly, and it's 4v5. And then Immortals would chase it down for a couple more kills. But it just kind of feels like Immortals is now what CLG was a couple years ago almost, or like what CLG wants to be, where you have this amazing playmaking support in Ole, who, by the way, completely dominated this series.
He was absurd.
He was fantastic, and they just have overall terrific team play, and like their calls are on point. They move together as a team. It's basically what CLG was like their proudest part of their team a couple splits ago, but now it's Immortals, and they've got 2 ex-CLG players, so
Rub it in.
yeah,
Yeah,
salt in the wound.
Ole's that guy in solo queue where you're like, why is he in my lane? And you just never expect him to be there. I mean, you saw it in game 1, like when Pobelter made a deep dive and got bailed out pretty much. But he's all over the map, and he is a huge playmaker. But again, like if he recalls and goes back to base, doesn't mean he's going to go back bottom. He could show up mid, he could show up top. You never know where he's going to go, and that's why he's so dangerous. He's just unpredictable, and he really understands the game level, even though he may not always communicate that he's going to go mid. Man, he's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, all you need are some pinks.
That's
on
it.
my way. On my way. Here he comes.
Exactly.
And I mean, Pobelter, a guy who also played super well in this series, but there were a couple times where you mentioned that he got caught out. He went a little too deep. We got a clip of him diving Pobelter, or not Pobelter, diving Huhi.
There you go.
And then he does a bit of a misplay, but someone comes in to save him. You know?
Yeah, I mean, he made a great play here, but he kind of miscalculates the damage because
The
Huhi
shield.
gets that shield off the Q, but Ole comes flashing in, and the passive heal saves him as well. And I think in a post game they were saying, or Pobelter said, he didn't even know Ole was coming. But then let's fast forward to like a 40-minute team fight here, and you're gonna see CLG just trying to force down this Elder Dragon with Omar God and Xmithy dead. But unfortunately, it kind of resets on them, and then looks like they're gonna disengage, but CLG goes right back on the Elder Dragon.
It's so low, you gotta go
It's
for
so
it.
low, and then watch how low it gets. It's sitting at 52 HP. One auto attack is all it's gonna take, but it's gonna reset briefly so that auto doesn't take it, and then the Kog'Maw ulti steals it. And that's actually such a massive play. Elder Drake goes towards Immortals. CLG actually lost their bottom inhibitor turret to minions, which doesn't help too much. So with that Elder Dragon push, Immortals got mid inhib and that bot inhib right after, and that pretty much snowballed the game. Kind of just an unfortunate Elder's take.
I mean, that's clearly a pretty desperate play with neither team having their jungler there. Like, you know that's going to be a toss-up, and like CLG was behind a couple thousand gold, so I guess they felt like they had to just go all in for that play, and yeah, a little bit unlucky, but I mean, what can you expect with a 50-50 toss-up like that?
It could go either way.
Yeah.
They probably should have had it in that burst, but again, that brief reset on the Dragon really caused them. And it was just because they were kind of playing 50-50. They were refusing to commit to it for good reason, because Immortals was right there. But yeah, that play right there, that 50-50, really did cost them. Who knows, maybe they stalled it out and won the game, but then they lost all 3.
Yeah, and
Feels good, man.
There were moments where they just weren't even close. Immortals was getting up some pretty huge leads, and I mean, Cody Sun played Kog'Maw all 3 games. The first game, I mean, he was pretty heavily focused, and he had not his best performance, I would say, but I mean, the other 2 games he was fantastic, clearly dominant, putting out insane amounts of damage on that champion, and he seemed pretty comfortable the whole series. I mean, CLG didn't do too much to disrupt them, especially in pick bans. You get Kog'Maw all 3 games. And Ole on Alistar 2 of the 3 games. I mean,
and the other one, Tom Kinch.
Yeah, which is even more fun to just eat your AD. So, I don't know, CLG didn't really disrupt what Immortals wanted to do in any of these
Not at all.
champion picks.
No, I mean, Pobelter got cast when he wanted to. Cody Sun got Kog'Maw, which he's shown as one of his favorite picks, especially when Ole is just protecting him nonstop. You just stand there. And that's, if you're Kog'Maw, you just want to stand in one place and output that damage with the Rage Blade, get those procs off, and then you just do so much damage over time. So, yeah, they really didn't take it away for some reason. They were very set on the Xayah Rakan. All 3 games they took that combination, even though it wasn't working. They just refused to adapt for some reason. And I don't know why. There were other picks available that could have done something that could have been, you know, more aggressive towards actually stopping that Kog'Maw.
Yeah, but you can't break up the power couple bottom lane. If it's available, you got to play them together. I mean, that recall, that shortened recall that you can get is completely game-changing.
It is.
Didn't see it in this set, but
No.
I think the main thing in this series was just Immortals across the board. Everyone played really well, and CLG, the miscommunications and just sometimes over-aggressiveness trying to force things. We've got another example of that with a clip, them trying to do a little tower dive, and yeah.
Yeah, there's Afro hiding in the behind a ward there. He flashes in, gets that double knockup. Great knockup, but Oh My God follows up with an ulti as well. But of course, there's Ole to eat Po Belter on that Tom Kench. One of the most obnoxious champs in the game. And then Oh My God flashes away from his teammates, overextends there. Great Gregus ulti brings Afro in, Darshan in. Flame, you're going to ult Darshan to keep him close as well. And they're just going to kind of wipe it from there. Ole ults past the team, brings Cody's son with him, and they're going to take the rest of the kills here for an ace. And again, that's the turning point in Game 3. CLG was kind of in it for a lot of that game, but after this ace, it really just went the way of Immortals pretty cleanly.
Yeah, and anytime that somehow turns into basically an ace for an opposing team in a solo queue game, you know the surrender vote is coming out.
Yeah.
And instantly 3 yeses like 90% of the time.
Sure.
So, I mean, that's pretty much disaster. Yeah, when that happens, you try and make a play, you don't really get anything, and you guys get wiped. I mean, final nail in the coffin for CLG, but clearly Immortals, the way better team in this series, and they finally get a playoff series win.
Yeah, congratulations to them, because last time they were that 1 seed and lost in their first playoff matchup. So disappointing back then, but the turnaround with the new roster looks fantastic. Cody's son and Ole, formidable bot lane all of a sudden after they were the point of Immortals that were kind of
better than formidable.
Well, yeah, but they were mocked before. Last season, it's like, oh, Cody's son is terrible. Why'd they pick up this guy? Well, now he's a top 2, probably.
Yeah.
With maybe behind double after that.
Yeah, and really showing up in the playoffs. Not like his first playoff series, and he showed no signs of nerves or anything like that. He looked pretty solid in all 3 games, and congratulations to Immortals. Going to the finals, first time ever.
And Worlds.
And, you know, the interesting thing, it's actually the same, I read that it's the same LCS slot that GGU had.
That's right, rematch.
So technically, it's still one of the only 4 teams to get to the NALCS
They're
finals.
pretty different, but
I don't know.
Technically.
Same spot. I mean, they are pretty different, though.
If that's the same thing, then it's going 5 games.
Oh.
Good Game University almost won that series back in the day.
Yep.
That was one of the most incredible things.
Prime Zion Spartan.
Yeah. Well, he's on
still calls him that.
CLG, unfortunately. But
Yes.
daydreaming coming back.
At least quadra-kill?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Pretty wild. Sunday, more games, starting with EU, G2, H2K.
Oh, boy.
This one, everyone was like, oh, I was pretty hyped for this.
Yeah, great series.
I mean, Febivin had a fantastic regular season, and I really thought he was going to continue to be a dominant force in the mid lane. He always plays well in these big games, but he was completely outclassed by Perks. Perks had an amazing series and pretty much dumpstered it.
Yeah, this version of Perks kind of came out of nowhere after the split he's had. Again, he hasn't been bad by any means, but he's kind of been disappearing from time to time, game to game. He hasn't been the huge carry for G2. But in this series, my goodness, he was all over the place. And, I mean, his ults and Orianna were on point. He was 1v1ing, 1v2ing people. He was a huge force and the main carry threat for G2 in this series. And also Trick on Sejuani. Seems like that's one of his favorite champs. Able to have an impact, even though not always the best early on. But once you get hit level 6, you're always a threat to get some good ganks off.
Yeah, and I mean, in the bottom lanes, Ven and Mithy, stable as always. I mean, they were clearly the better bot lane in all these games. And I think people expected that coming into this set, that was where the main advantage for G2 was. So no surprise there. But yeah, definitely the mid lane. And I think the jungle as well. Yanko's kind of expecting him to, you know, be solid.
Not on Nunu.
Yeah, that was an interesting
That's such a not Yanko's pick.
Yeah.
I don't fully understand. He likes to be aggressive and make plays, but on Nunu, you're not really a playmaker. You can sit in a bush and maybe ult and go invade Trick and whatnot. But when your lanes are losing, Nunu is also losing.
And it's especially bad when you're losing smite fights as
Yes.
Nuno. Pretty key Baron fight. And I mean, after the game, Yankos even said they should have gotten that play. And then it almost sounded like that play kind of threw them off for a lot of the series. And if one play is doing that, I mean, that's a bit of an issue. But I mean, they're kind of a team that's been prone to tilting. Kind of the theme of maybe this weekend,
the theme of
tilt
Europe,
going
yeah,
on.
is definitely tilting. Yeah, Yankos can be a guy who kind of gets thrown off kilter. He'll say he doesn't, but definitely he does. And if you miss a smite combination with Nunu, you're definitely going to be pretty upset with yourself, because that should never happen, especially against a Sejuani that is sitting in the pit with you. You know he's going to try to smite it, and somehow he gets it off. So that didn't make a lot of sense. Like, sure, they had Cho'Gath on the team too, but he was way on the other side. So there was no threat of a feast or anything. all they had to do was take that away. Could have been a different game, different series.
Yeah, but I think the main thing from this series was just the play of Perks and how Trick and the rest of the team played around him. He had a fantastic set, and he mentioned his play on Orianna. We got a clip here of some of his Orianna play, and I will say H2K kind of walked into this.
They did walk into it, but I mean, Trick kind of starts the engage ahead of his team, kind of sees Odoamne out of position. Looks like it's going to be okay, but there's a great Sejuani ultimate to kind of set things up. But again, they turn on Trick and do a ton of damage to him really quickly with Tristana. But there's the shockwave. H2K thinks they can, turn it around once Trick is dead, but not a chance. And then Sivir's damage takes it from there. Free Baron after that because H2K health bars are ticking super red.
Yeah.
So, man, that shockwave was
that a 3K? 3K ELO?
How much 5, at least 5K.
Yeah. I don't think that was impossible.
I don't know, but that was an absurd. You rarely see 5-man shockwaves. But again, that's also on H2K overcommitting after they got that one kill on the Trick, thinking they could take that team fight. Not after that shock.
And after that Sejuani ult that kind of got them in place, they kind of all bunched even further together. It's like they kind of forgot they were playing against an Orianna. But I think throughout the whole split, Orianna's a champion that Perks has pretty much always had some game-changing ults. Even when the team's behind, he's had some huge ults on Orianna. But I mean, pretty much every pro player right now can play a pretty good Orianna. Not to take that away from Perks.
No, not to take it away, but yeah, H2K also kind of, that ball was sitting there for like a couple of seconds before he pulled the trigger, because they really did clump onto it, and it's like, well, H2K.
It's got a magnet on it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does, apparently. But yeah, that thing completely turned the tides. The game was still pretty close until that point, and then again, you take that Baron, take a bunch of turrets, and you have a huge gold lead.
Yeah, and it wasn't even just in team fights that Perks was dominating. We got a couple more clips here of in lane, 1v1, 1v2, 1v9, basically, in some of these games.
And this is in a crucial game 3 for H2K. And he just kind of steps up, gets that ult off right in Fevin's face. Sure, the cleanse comes out, but the Cassiopeia damage, once you hit that Q, you spam those E's, the damage is insane. And then here, a complete outplay again. Gets some early damage, but in the 2-man stun, turns them both to stone, flashes that cask, and then just does Fevin in. Almost
burns
takes down Yanko's too.
How sad is it when you have basically 80% health and the cast has 15 and you're like, I'm going to lose this 1v1 because Twin Fangs is an insane skill.
It's a very good skill. If you hit that Q and you're good with your skill shots, then that E just does so much damage over time. It's ridiculous. But yeah, you saw it with Pro Belter, the ability for Cassiopeia to 1v1 people, 1v2 is definitely there. So that's a big outplay champion, and I would expect to be a huge point of contention in the Misfits G2 finals because both Power of Evil and Perks show that they can definitely play that champ to the highest ability.
Yeah, and I think just across the LCS is going to be a pretty big pick just because basically any tiny advantage you can get as a team, if you have a Cassiopeia, it's basically, all right, we can Baron now because she just cruises through Baron's health bar. It's absolutely insane. Even if it's like 22 minutes, if she has like 1 or 2 items, basically, she just carves through it. So yeah, definitely going to be a contested pick in that finals. And Misfits G2, don't think many people were expecting that. G2, sure.
Sure, but even mid-season, a lot of people were counting out G2 because of their struggles and whatnot. We both thought that they'd be able to get back onto what they were doing. Even at Rift Rivals, they kind of struggled, but down the stretch and now in playoffs, they look good. Splice was a tough matchup for them, but they handily took care of H2K. And now they're going to have another tough test in the Misfits who just love to pull off these upsets. Convincing upsets, too.
Yeah, I mean, they haven't even looked like upsets. They've just been so dominant. So we'll see what they've got going forward in that final set on Sunday and the final set of the weekend.
Probably the best set of the weekend.
Definitely the closest, I would say. Still no 5th game, but TSM, Dignitas, after Dig looked pretty spectacular against C9 in the quarters. People were saying maybe, you know what, they might actually have a chance against TSM. And for pretty much the majority of the first game, it looked like this was going to go the distance and be a 5-set slugfest. Basically that first team fight of the game where Bjergsen got a triple on Kassadin was like, oh my god, this is pretty even.
Yeah, it was even. But both teams seemed hesitant early on to make plays, and that definitely favored TSM because their composition was so late game favored. They had the Tristana, they had that Kassadin, which we all know, if it gets to late and gets those Roa stacks going, the Seraphs and Braves, it's tough to stop. And even had Zanya's, so he would go in with his ult, do a bunch of damage, hit the zombies, and be able to get right back out of there. But yeah, just because TSM was able to kind of delay this game and take it to the late, it was just so favored for them later on. Dignitas wasn't able to do enough early on to get a big gold lead and take it from there. But yeah, it was still very even.
Yeah, and talking about that, Zhonya's on Kassadin, just having a Shen with you as well it's a pretty insane combo to Rift walk in, do your combo, Zhonya's in there with the Shen ult, and then Hanser's in there, you Rift walk out. I mean, it's a pretty perfect setup, and TSM executed it multiple times throughout that game super well. But I think the biggest attribute and one of the biggest strengths of TSM in this series, and really you've seen it throughout the whole split, is just how they control Baron. And in the regular season, you would see them just randomly go for Baron. They wouldn't even really have any significant advantage in that game, and they would just kind of sneak a Baron, and we've got an example of that in game 1, and it's a pretty early Baron too.
Yeah, it was definitely pretty early, but the play here looks like Adrian's kind of caught out. Alt Tech pulls him back. Looks like it's just going to be a clean disengage.
Yep.
See you later, we're walking out of here. But Adrian decides to go back in, and I love this play. Able to pick out Bjergsen, force the Zhonya's right here. Can't click the Lantern because there's a million bodies on it. But yeah, and then they just take care of Bjergsen. Looks like Dignitas is going to have a huge edge here. Someday it's going to flash on Sven, try to take him out. If the jungler is gone, looks like a free Baron. But Sven's going to be able to walk out the back door. They start up Baron anyways. Keen chases him out. But unfortunately, there's still 3 members of TSM that are completely healthy at full HP. And they're going to be able to just walk Dignitas right out of the Baron pit. Looks like, oh, team fight over. Maybe they'll catch Sven. No, takes the Lantern. And then TSM, super smart, with Dignitas recalling, every member just goes so far away, and they have that control ward in the pit, takes that free Baron, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that's kind of a small mistake by Dignitas there to just kind of completely disregard Baron now.
Sure.
Maybe they were thinking it's a little too early for TSM to just go and rush it, but kudos to TSM for knowing, I mean, how strong they are, how quickly they can do Baron, because yeah, they just turned what wasn't really any sort of advantage for them. They're the guy who lost someone like 30 or 40 seconds before that, and they somehow turned that into a Baron. I mean, that's a pretty big play in a close game 1 to start it. I mean, yeah, it's not fun for Dig to give up a free Baron.
It's not, but you can call it a misplay if you want, and it kind of is. Dig maybe should have expected, or maybe cleared that pink ward that got snuck in there during the team fight. But overall, it's just TSM being so aware of what's going on the map. They're like, yeah, Dig's going to recall now. They kind of had low HP bars. They don't think we're going to do Baron. They probably think we're going to recall too. Sven's kind of low. So we're just going to sneak in there, take the Baron. And they continued to stall at that game 1. And TSM, again, just continued to scale up and won game 1 from there.
And I will say that Dig still looked pretty solid, pretty respectable in this set. And they're probably the favorite. Not a huge favorite, probably the favorite heading into that Gauntlet, which again has some pretty solid teams in there. Both the NA and EU Gauntlet are going to be a wild ride. Yeah, no doubt.
They kind of struggled in game 2 against TSM. They went back to that comp that they had so much success with against Cloud9, the Nunu Kog'Maw composition, but that backfired pretty handily. Or sorry, Twitch Nunu is what it was. But yeah, that didn't pan out too well. Game 3, Dignitas stepped it back up, able to look like they were going to maybe pull off a reverse sweep until game 4 happened. But again, game 4 was very close and even as well. Another one of those kind of Baron takes for TSM that turned the tides.
Yeah, and I think the Maokai wasn't nearly as impactful for Someday in this series as it was against C9. Against C9, it was like this unmovable wall that was like, all right, we can't do anything. He's just killing our ADs. I mean, Hanser had a pretty solid series, and I think TSM were able to pretty much get him on picks that he wanted in whatever matchup against Someday that he had, and he pretty much neutralized Someday this whole set.
Yeah, neutralized them, and as a team as well, they were able to keep Someday off of the carries. Pretty much every time Someday went for an engage, it was on the front line tank to try to focus him out, but in a lot of these games, you had guys like Kog'Maw with Double Lift just doing so much damage on that front line tank that as soon as Someday actually went for an engage, he was chunked out so quickly.
Yeah.
So that didn't pan out too well. So it was just positioning expertly from TSM. Double Lift and Bjergsen not getting caught out by these snares that guys like Sneaky and Jensen were in the previous series.
Yeah, and I think that's just a testament to Bjergsen and Double Lift playing super well in this series. I think TSM's an example of a team that uses the buy super well. I mean, they clearly paid attention to what Dignitas did against Cloud9, and made sure that it didn't happen to them. Whereas maybe some of these, I don't want to trash talk any EU teams, but maybe they're not utilizing the bye week as well as as a team like TSM. Maybe they are, and they just, one play happens and then it kind of throws them off for a whole set. But I feel like TSM is the team who really utilizes these bye weeks, probably because Reggie will threaten them with either no food or they'll be hit with sticks or something.
Definitely
if they're not studying their opponents and practicing as much as they possibly can.
Yeah, that TSM regiment is pretty solid. But again, this team is stacked across the board.
Yep.
Doublelift and Bjergsen, obviously no slouches in their own position, and Doublelift really stepped up. This Kog'Maw thing was something he hasn't really played too much during the regular split, but he loved it in this series, and all of a sudden this Kog'Maw is a super power pick, especially when you have these supports in Braum, in Tahm Kench, in Alistar that can protect the AD carry and keep him safe. It makes a lot of sense. So even in the finals against Immortals, Cody Sun and Doublelift, the two guys in North America that really played this Cog, that pick is going to be hugely contested, if not banned.
Yeah, and I think another pick that's kind of resurfaced across all regions the last week or two, you saw it in Korea and in the LPL, is that Varus pick down bottom. I mean, it was pretty much picked most games early on in the split, and then it kind of fell off for a while, but now it seems to be back in full force. And when it's not the only damage source on a team, that's a shout out to Envy. I mean, it's a pretty good pick, and when you have CC on an AD, it's always a bonus.
Yeah, that pick is definitely coming back into popularity, but also because the AD carry bans right now are like 5 or 6 deep in some of these games.
Yeah.
Tristana's gone, Kallista's getting banned out, Twitch, Ashe. So many AD carry bans, which is kind of good to see because for a long time it was like, oh, here's Caitlyn and Ashe being played again. Pretty exciting. So it's good to see a lot of variety in the AD carry meta. It can literally be probably like 6 or 7 champs viable in that position. It's nice.
Yeah, now I want to jump back.
Yeah, we got a
series just for one thing because we're talking about AD carry picks. Game 4 Fnatic and Misfits. I mean, Misfits has a pretty tanky comp. So Fnatic draft an immobile AD carry that can chunk down tanks, right? Oh, he locked in Kog'Maw. Great. Oh, wait.
Oh, that's
Jhin.
Jhin.
It's an interesting... I mean, Jhin has been meta for a long time, but what did you think of that Jhin pick for Reckless in Game 4?
I thought it was really bad. I thought it was a terrible pick. I mean, if you look at their lineup, Misfits had J4, Trundle, and Greg, especially the Trundle pick. It's something that Jhin struggles against so much. Being able to walk around that pillar is not something he can do very
easily when
easily.
You're laning against it.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So, I mean, the Jhin pick didn't make a lot of sense. And against tanks, he really isn't very effective. Again, the 4 bullets with the reload takes a lot of time. His DPS isn't always the highest, and the ult just doesn't do anything against tanks. It fell flat for sure.
Yeah.
Picking that Jhin didn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, you had the last pick. You could pick whatever that wasn't banned or picked already, but
yeah,
it's an interesting pick. Just want to jump back to that one. Back to TSM. Yeah. Back to NA. I think still the main reason they were able to come away with that series, and one of the reasons they're the best NA team, I would say. I mean, they are the top seed, so you can't even argue it. So, I would say is just that Baron control, and we showed some of it in that first game there, but then later on in the series again, just the old Baron dance and tango TSM does so well.
Yeah, and I mean, sure, Someday was dead before they started this Baron, but he's able to teleport back into the fight. TSM looks like they're kind of screwed here. They're awfully low. Someday, again, there he is going at the tank instead of the back line, but Haunter's able to limp away with a sliver of HP, which is massively important here. He's eventually going to recall, but now Dig's going to turn on the Baron themselves, thinking that, oh, we forced TSM off, no problem. But TSM comes back in with Haunter doing his recall, and they're eventually going to chunk Dignitas even further. Sven with a barrel, does a little bit of poke damage. Baron's doing a ton of damage to them. Once they see that TP, they completely disengage it. Lucian's ultimate does so much damage to Adrian.
Disgusting.
And then Dignitas has no choice but to just back away at this point or get aced pretty much.
Yeah.
So that Haunter TPing back in at full HP turns the tides of this fight, and they get a free Baron without killing anybody.
And I feel like seeing a team like admit defeat and just walking away is sometimes almost better than like, it's obviously not better than actually getting kills, but just being like, yeah, we completely won that and now we have the Baron. That's just something TSM has done so well and was one of the main reasons that they won that series against Dig.
Yeah, it wasn't even that they got the Baron. The power play itself was amazing. They got 4 turrets off of it. And then after that, they transitioned back to the Elder Dragon, which got them another Baron. And Dignitas, they were able to hold on pretty well for a while, but it was just too much. With Elder Drake and Baron, you can't hold on at that point.
Yeah, and you can tell that that's something TSM has been working on, not only reassuring that they get that Baron, making sure that they get it, but then working on that power play and, you know, pushing that advantage even further. So TSM Immortals in the finals, the top 2 seeds. I think it's exciting to see that, so that it's not just another rematch of any iteration of TSM CLG or TSM C9. It's great to have another team in the finals here.
It definitely is. It's nice to see. Outside of those, the usual suspects. Good for Immortals.
Yeah, we'll get to your questions in just a sec, so make sure you're sending in those questions. We'll
That's
be
right.
answering them real quick. The Gauntlet, before we get to the finals, the Gauntlets are set in each region. Well, I guess CLG Dignitas.
Yeah, whoever
the
wins
third
gets
match,
the
gets the
second
better
spot. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's still C9 at the top, if I'm correct. Yes.
Yeah, C9 is the final boss in NA, and Fnatic the final boss in EU. Who do you think are the favorites in heading into that Gauntlet?
Can I pick FlyQuest? Probably
You can
can't
absolutely pick
I will
FlyQuest.
not pick FlyQuest.
They
but,
do get a buff whenever they go down.
They do.
2-0.
I think Dignitas is still the favorite in North America. Sure, they have to play an extra game, but they already beat Cloud9. And unless Cloud9 can figure out some way to get everything together, I know on Twitter they've been like guaranteeing that we're going to turn things around and make it to Worlds, but I'm not convinced. I think Dignitas is a really high quality team. And in Europe, I think I might go with the underdog in Splice. Sure, Fnatic again has that you know, the final boss mentality.
Just gotta win
but,
one series.
I kind of like Splice. After what they showed against G2, the preparation when they have time to do it was impressive to me. Even without a coach, they were able to prepare very well. So I'm going to take them. Fnatic, I didn't love their performance too much. So
I think it's another kind of issue for them where they've got to work on what they want Reckless to be picking again, because I felt like in a lot of those games, the Ashe had like not a whole lot of effect or impact on these games. If I feel like that champion, if you're not ahead, then you're basically a CC bot, and they really need Reckless with that team to be putting some more damage in these team fights. So
yeah, I'm with you. Bring back the Tristan.
Bring back the Trist, even though it's perma-banned
Yeah.
every game. So that's a bit of an issue, but maybe pick up the Kog'Maw. But either way, the Gauntlet going to be very interesting in both regions. And now it's question time.
It is question time.
Everyone's favorite time.
Yes. Just a reminder that on Wednesday we're going to be going pretty in depth in some of those final previews. So tune in for that. 2 great finals.
We'll be digging in lane by lane.
That's right. Going to be quite the show. Woohoo.
Believe you me.
I believe you. Philip Madsen, speaking about TSM, do you think they go to semis at Worlds? That's quite the long shot, but they might have the number 1. So.
But basically number 1 is same as number 2 now in NA. They're pretty comparable, those seedings in Worlds. Semis, I would say that that's pretty tough. Again, we've kind of talked about this before. You basically, I feel like, have to get top seed in your group to have a good shot at semis, because if you're going in that second seed, you're facing a top seed from one of the other groups, and it's likely going to be a Korean team or obviously a really strong team from some other region. You got a way better chance as a top seed. I can see them definitely getting to quarters. Semis would be tough, though. But I think they have the capability. That's their ceiling for sure.
They can make it, but I really don't think they will. Again, I expect them to get out of the group stage, no problem. But right now, there's 2 seeds out there like SK Telecom, and if they're in your group, that's not a good look. So
yeah, then you're definitely not getting that top seed. You're
right.
Scrapping for second.
Everything depends so much on the group stage that it's really hard to comment on how far someone can go until we get that group draws, which is one of my favorite shows of the year, because there's always that team on Twitter who's like, oh, we're screwed.
Like, I love some of the reaction videos of teams. There was TSM a couple years ago when they were super happy with their group, and then they were like, oh, actually, due to a technicality, you're not in this group, you're in this one. And Reggie, and I think it was Loco Doco, had a very hilarious reaction. So those videos are always great, but they should get out of groups at least.
Right. Now, Lyra Zeron says, do you still think Jensen is really better than Bjergsen? I think opposite. And it's not that we ever said that Jensen was better than Bjergsen. It's that we said he had a better regular split than Bjergsen did, which warranted him the MVP title. Because it's, as you like to say, it is a regular season award. And in the regular season, he had a better split. That is all.
It doesn't mean that Jensen is a better player than Bjergsen.
Correct.
He had a better regular split. Career-wise, it's not even close. Bjergsen is miles ahead of Jensen. Of course he is. He's been there much longer. He's had such dominance in the NALCS, and internationally he's been fantastic as well. He was terrific against Dignitas, one of the main reasons TSM won. But Jensen should still get MVP.
Yes. Even though Cloud9 got eliminated,
Yeah.
he should still get MVP.
Yeah.
We stick by that statement here
Yep.
at Chalk College Esports. Continue to roast, if you will.
Yep.
But I think he's going to win it.
I think he probably will.
All right. Lol Marquez wants to know, would you call Misfits good or Fnatic bad? I think at this point you have to call Misfits good. It's not
Absolutely.
It's not just, a fluke anymore. Sure, the Unicorn series, after that one, you could be like, yeah, the Unicorns kind of sucked. And they did. But, I mean, Misfits are doing something to take everyone out of their comfort zone. Their early game is fantastic again.
Yeah.
Max Lore has been doing something that he hasn't done all split long, and that's being active in the early game and then carrying it out throughout. Anytime you see a jungler get 100% kill participation, that's a good
crazy.
sign.
Yeah, and I think Hans Sama has really stepped it up in the playoffs as well. He went against probably two of the maybe top 4 ADs in back-to-back series. Samix had a great split for UOL, and then Reckless, probably MVP, if not one of the top candidates in EU, and he pretty much outmatched them in both of those sets. I mean, yeah, Fnatic didn't play as well as people would have expected, or as well as they did in the entire regular split, but I mean, Misfits 6-1 in the playoffs, you gotta say they're playing really well. They just turned some kind of switch on that they all of a sudden figured out what to do after 15 minutes, and they're doing it really well.
It's just crazy to me that all of a sudden this team is at Worlds after they've been like slept upon during the entire regular season.
They've been the perennial middle tier team. You're like, yeah, they're not bad. They're not great.
Yeah, they're going to beat those lower crappy teams, and they're probably going to lose to the top teams.
They're a perennial first round exit, but they proved everyone wrong, us included, during their current playoff run.
Yeah, very good for them, because not many people saw that coming.
No.
The Shrimper wants to know, is G2 back to their MSI form? You'd have to say so.
They looked pretty. That was as dominant a series as you can probably have against H2K.
Again, it could disappear by next week because Trick comes and goes week to week.
Yeah.
But, I mean, on Sejuani he looked very comfortable, and if Perks keeps playing like that, it's going to be pretty interesting. He's got another interesting mid lane matchup against PoE next week, so that should be a good one for sure.
Yeah, I think they've pretty much shown ever since they came back from Rift Rivals that they're the G2 of old, at least in EU. I mean, throughout their history, they've dominated domestically. I think they'll probably showcase that they're still the better team in the finals. I think Misfit's going to put up a pretty great fight. I mean, I wouldn't have expected to say that a few weeks ago, but I think G2 is back to where people would expect them, and it's just, can they compete internationally? They've already locked their spot at Worlds. Just where their seeding is going to be, can they show that they are not only a top EU team, but a top team in the world? Internationally, a little more question marks, but they're the best in EU.
Yeah, probably. At least across the board. Who knows? Misfits, I kind of see potentially pulling off another upset, but it's going to be a good series, and you can definitely, right now, probably call G2 the best. But
yeah, I am not
don't bet against
betting
Misfits.
against Misfits right now.
No,
done it twice and got burned. I think, yeah, they look great.
They do look good. Muhammad Ali, great boxer, wants to know, what do you think about Svenskeren? He's kind of flying under the radar.
I mean, everyone else is playing so well on TSM that, yeah, he has flown under. I mean, he was pretty solid against Dignitas. I think Shrimp was a guy who played super well against C9 and was one of the main reasons. And I think he was much less impactful in this series. And I think a lot of that has to do with Svenskeren. So,
yeah, Svenskeren did a good job neutralizing Shrimp, but he does really fly under the radar. Again, you have Bjergsen and Doublelift on your team. They're going to take all the
Everyone's
attention.
under the radar.
This guy was playing tanks. He had some good counter ganks that kind of turned the tides a little bit. But yeah, Svenskeren's solid. He's kind of what this team needs. They don't need another superstar guy, but he can definitely turn it on and take over games when he needs to. So,
I mean, he might be the, I don't even want to say worst player on TSM because that sounds like an insult, but I mean, the rest of that, they have a top 3 player at every position. So, I mean, he might be the worst player on TSM, but that is by no means an insult. It's just because that team is so solid across the board, and Svenskeren's still one of the top junglers in NA for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you. The Shrimper kind of asked the question that you asked me earlier about who you thought would win the Gauntlet. I said Splice and Dignitas. Give us your take.
I mean, it seems like it's easiest just to pick the guys who only have to win one series.
Definitely would.
But I feel like C9 will. I hate when teams guarantee these things because
it's never good.
It's kind of a bad look either way. I feel like, especially when you lose, then it's a really bad look.
Yes.
But I do feel like they're gonna work something out to get back, especially if I think it's likely they'll face Dignitas again in that final match in the Gauntlet, and I think they'll definitely be ready for playing them again, and they'll kind of want redemption. I think it's not just on Jensen to play better. I think their bot lane needs to not completely get clobbered in these 2v2s. I think across the board these guys can play better, much better than they did against Dignitas the first time around, and they'll be looking to redeem themselves again. In EU, I mean, Fnatic didn't look so hot.
No, they didn't look hot. H2K didn't look hot. The Unicorns didn't look hot.
I really thought H2K would kind of put up a run and get to their first LCS finals, but I have pretty much no confidence going with them in the Gauntlet. I mean, UOL, I think they still have the same issues that they've had where you focus Exile and he'll go 0-6. Chachi has been had a lot of question marks around him for a guy who was MVP last split. So I think it will come down to Splice Fnatic in the finals. So I guess I'll be boring, and I think Fnatic, much like C9, is kind of looking at redemption. And these are two storied organizations that don't want to miss out on the opportunity to get to Worlds, and I think they'll get there.
I'm with you.
Actually, you weren't. You were with the other team.
I do like Splice, though. But you never know. You never know. Some people, we'll see. Again, it's easy to take that top seed.
I mean, buys didn't help EU this week, so maybe it's not a great thing. You want to get some rhythm going.
I love the rapid fire gauntlet, though.
Yeah,
keep those games coming. It's fantastic.
Pretty exhausting when FlyQuest gets to the finals, though. It's a lot of games for them.
Some people want some finals predictions already.
Sure.
Let's start with EU. Some people in chat are saying Misfits 3-1.
Wow.
G2 3-1, G2 3-2, Misfits 3-2, G2 3-2. So pretty mixed. So quickly, let's not go too in depth because we're going to do that on Wednesday. But
sure.
What do you think?
I can't see the EU finals going less than 5 games. I think G2 has kind of shown in some series they almost take a game off. They're kind of like, well, we lost that one. But it's rarely, if ever, more than one game. They rarely even go to 5 games in a 5-game set. But I think Misfits has just found their rhythm, found their synergy as a team. I mean, they're team fighting amazingly well in these playoffs. Only dropped 1 game. I mean, they just look so good across the board that I think they're going to give G2 all they can handle. I think G2 will win just because they've looked great since Rift Rivals, as I said earlier. But I think it's going to be a really close, hard-fought series between these two.
Fair enough. I'm kind of a big believer in going with the hot team. And I know G2 just swept the series too, so there really isn't a hot team. But right now it just seems like Misfits is on this miracle run, and I kind of want to ride it all the way. So I think they might win 3-2. They kind of hold up a little bit better in those lane matchups. Hansama and Ignar, pretty good against Sven and Mithy. It's going to be a great matchup there. PoE against Perks.
Yeah, that's going to be
fantastic.
The must-watch. Orianna games, oh boy, probably every time.
Yep. So again, this one could really go either way. It's going to be tough to make a prediction, but I'll take Misfits 3-2 as of right now.
Yeah, and I think right now there's no huge advantages in pretty much any of those lanes.
No.
So yeah, definitely. I'd be surprised if it didn't go to 5, whoever wins.
Yeah, I agree. Let's go to NA. Some predictions in chat include 3-1 to TSM, 3-1 Immortals, another 3-1 for Immortals. So some Immortals love out there. And then Jose Mendez, do you guys expect Immortals to win their first NALCS split championship? I don't know if I expect it. That's asking for quite a bit because TSM, they probably faced a tougher team this past weekend.
Yeah. And
again, we mentioned their Baron control time after time. It was fantastic. So objective control is going to be huge with Immortals, but they're no joke. They're for real. And it's going to be these two teams with that bye going head-to-head. I'd still probably take TSM,
Yeah.
but I'll probably say 3-1 TSM in the finals.
Yeah, I'd probably give TSM like a 65-35 edge maybe in this one. But again, I don't think there's any glaring advantages for either of these teams. They're the two best bot lanes in NA, I'd probably say. Usually I would give a big advantage to Bjergsen in the mid lane, but I think Pobelter has played pretty amazingly against CLG, got some vengeance against his old team, and even to close out the split, basically the whole second half of the regular season, he looked really good for Immortals. So obviously the slight edge has to go to Bjergsen because he's Bjergsen. He's been to the finals so many times. He knows how to play in these big games. He looked great against Dignitas. He's probably got the deepest champion pool of any mid laner, but I still do like TSM. I could see it going to 5 as well, but I'm kind of just saying 5 because I want to see 5 games.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Immortals has the stuff to take this to 5 games for sure.
They definitely do. Lots of good trash talk happening, too. After the Immortals series, Pobelter said that he doesn't care who was going to be in the finals with him because they can beat both. And then Doublelift the day after was like, well, the one time POB was in finals, I carried him to the victory. So some good, maybe not so friendly trash talk between the two former teammates. So I always love to see that before finals.
Love seeing 3 CLG members, ex-CLG members in the finals, and no CLG. It's very interesting, but I think both finals are going to be really interesting. Maybe not exactly what people expected, but going to be a great way to close out the LCS playoff run.
Yeah, let's hit 2 questions before we go to you.
Yeah, let her rip.
Oh, all right.
Let her rip.
Jose Mendez, do you guys feel like Xmithy or Ole were robbed of MVP?
I mean, they haven't officially announced it yet, but I mean,
right.
I don't think if they don't win, it's not a robbery by sense. I mean, they are definitely candidates. I would say Ole a little more than Xmithy, but I mean, whoever wins, I think you could say deserves it. If Jensen wins, absolutely, he deserves it. Probably a little more so than those 2 guys as we talked about, but I mean, they're definitely MVP candidates. I don't think they're necessarily robbed if they don't win.
Another thing that hurts them is that they are on the same team. And whenever you have 2 guys like that, they kind of, Xmithy's going to get some votes, Ole's going to get some votes.
Yeah, there's no one on C9.
Yeah, that team is also good because they have so many players kind of meshing together, whereas C9 is a standout largely because of Jensen's performance in the split. So it definitely hurts that they're on the same team, going to steal votes from each other, but I wouldn't call it a robbery. It's definitely unfortunate because they both played well, but I expect them to be up there in the top 3. So we'll see what happens. Maybe Doublelift gets some votes too. Wouldn't surprise me. And Bjergsen, obviously. Sorry, Bjergsen fans.
Whoa. I think Bjergsen will get a few more than Doublelift, probably.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of guys you could look to, though.
More questions than I remember in here, Eric, so we're going to keep going.
Go
if Reckless doesn't get EU MVP, who will get it?
Ooh, I mean, there's basically a couple guys even on Fnatic. People are saying, so as Broxa, again, regular season award. It's hard to not take into account their most previous series, but I mean, Reckless did have an amazing season, great KDA, but a lot of that was because of some of his teammates. So basically 3/5 of Fnatic you could pick as an MVP, or a guy like Febivin who basically when other guys, kind of like Jensen on C9, when other guys on H2K were struggling in some of these games, Febivin was that rock in the mid lane. So I think Febivin could be another guy you'd look to.
Yeah, it could be Febivin, but I think it goes to Broxa. I think he's the guy. Again, people kind of lose track of what he did because of what the team did as a whole and what Reckless did in the bot lane, but I mean, his KDA was better than Reckless. His first split percentage was off the charts. Very impressive jungler in just his second split. So I think he, even without Reckless winning, I would prefer for Broxa to win over him anyways. But yeah, there could be a guy like Febivin in the mix. And then I'd like Ignar to get some votes in that support role, even though they didn't have a great regular season split. I think he deserves it, an under-the-radar guy who doesn't get too much attention just because of poor regular season performance from his team, but he's been solid all season long too. Yeah,
and a guy who is really MVP for his team this split was a guy like Samix as well, especially with how mightily Exile and to a degree Vizicachi struggled as well. Samix was far and away the main carry on that team, so he might get some votes as well.
We will have to wait and see, but
yep,
I believe that comes out this week, like Wednesday or something.
Yeah, they kind of spaced them out. The coach, rookie,
Yeah, it's
MVP,
a lot of work.
all that stuff. You know.
Twitter question at
Ooh.
C9 Mitch wants to know, in the world's play-in stage, which of the number 3 seeds, NA, EU, China, Taiwan, has the best chances of not making it to groups?
Which 3 seed has the least or
Right.
best?
The worst chance, like which one will not make it to the actual group stage?
Okay.
We're gonna throw some EU shade.
I feel like the EU 3rd seed could maybe be better than the NA one. I think if Fnatic comes in as a 3rd seed and kind of refines themselves as to what they were, I think they're probably better than the NA 3rd seed.
Think they're better than Dig? Better than Cloud9?
I think if they're playing how they were earlier, I feel like this series was kind of a one-off thing for them. If they get back to form of the regular split, I think so.
But if you believe in the memes, they're not even better than the 10th best NA team.
That's a good point. So we do know P1 is the best team
Right.
out of all these. They would get out of groups no problem. But,
Yeah. On an international stage, Phoenix One is the best team in the world.
That's right. But I think, assuming Fnatic would get that 3rd seed, maybe even a team like Splice. They've been to Worlds before.
They have.
They almost got out of groups.
The Taiwanese 3rd team, too. I'm not exactly sure who that would be at the moment. I don't think that's a side either, but throw them in the mix. The Chinese team's probably good to go. They could probably have a nice spot.
Yeah.
Will we not see Korean team in finals? I'm sure we will. I'm predicting 2 Korean teams in the finals.
Yeah, that's probably a more arguable one. Will it be 2 Korean teams in the finals? Because 2 of them will probably play in the semis. It kind of depends how that playoff bracket in Worlds is made up. But I would be flabbergasted if there wasn't at least 1 Korean team in the finals.
Yeah, but again, let's just assume that, so like the 2 best teams that get there, I would probably say long as you and SKT.
Yeah.
Probably the safe coward way out on that one.
Yeah, you are a big coward,
that's
so
right.
that's typical. But
you can't argue right now. They're not the 2 best teams in the world.
No, and yeah, they're both, I'm sure, getting to at least semis, and then maybe they play each other, and someone gets knocked off. I mean, you've seen that in a lot of Worlds where basically the championship was in the semis, and it's usually some other team in the finals who gets there, usually have an easier side of the bracket. But if no Korean teams got into the finals, that would be crazy. It'd be wild.
It would be wild. That would be absurd. Philip Madsen, if TSM don't get out of groups, do they need a roster change? Spicy.
If they don't get out of groups, I don't know if they need one. They'd probably make one, though.
I'm sure they would make one because for the longest time they want to do well in Worlds, not just in North America. They've proven they can win North America with the roster they have.
Yeah, and I think they can get out of groups with the roster they have right now. If they don't, it's something to do with how they play, how they perform internationally under more scrutiny and pressure. But I mean, how much longer is Doublelift going to play? Is he going to play another whole split? Who knows? I think if they didn't, they would make some sort of change.
Yeah.
I don't know what. They could probably, I feel like almost anyone except Bjergsen, maybe Hanser could move.
Yeah, maybe.
Because I feel like Doublelift might retire or something. But
yeah, I don't know. Though he loves that competitive grind.
I think that's true. I think the most likely change they would make is in the jungle. Bring in Mr. Mike Young, maybe. I don't know. I don't think they need to make a change.
No, I don't think they do either. But they probably would if they don't make it out of groups.
Yeah.
That'd be a huge failure on their part.
Yeah.
Failure.
By their standards.
That's right. Okay, a couple more questions and then we'll get out of here. Ivan Neshkov, will Fnatic go to Worlds if they beat H2K? No, because Misfits has already locked it up, regardless of whether they win or not.
Yeah, the top
Misfits and G2 are locked in.
The top 2 are locked, so the only way Fnatic's getting in is if they win that gauntlet, which they are capable of if they play well. But if they play like they did against Misfits, it'll be tough for them.
It would be tough. But yeah, they got to go through gauntlet. The other 2 spots are already taken.
Yep.
That sucks for them.
Should have won. Should have played better.
Yeah, you definitely should have played better. Final question of the day.
Here we go.
Here we go. Robster
be a great
Monahan
one.
wants to know, what do you think Dick's potential is to get to Worlds? Again, I think it's really good. They're going to have to win at least 2 sets. No, sorry. Yeah, at least 2 sets.
Are they
That is
ahead of
correct.
CLG?
Depends.
Oh yeah, at least 2. Yes, right.
Because bottom seed is FlyQuest. They're going to have to do the most work.
Top C9.
Then the winner of Dig CLG gets 3rd.
Yeah.
Or
So,
loser gets 3rd, whatever. You understand.
They have to win 2 best-of-5s at least, maybe 3.
Yes. But I think they're the best team going to the Gauntlet right now. CLG looks disastrous. But again, they're CLG. They could turn things around, but
Yeah, they
Omar
are.
God looks awful in the jungle, to put it.
What if they throw in a sub? A Mike Young type who you've never heard of, from their academy team. That's
Maybe
not-
Darkdog's coming back.
Please no.
I'm sure he's available.
I'm sure that won't happen. But I think they've got a pretty good chance, Dig that is, in the Gauntlet. I see them taking on C9 in that final leg of it. I think C9 has a bit of revenge redemption, but Dig definitely has a good chance of going to Worlds.
One of those 2.
For sure. Not for sure. I don't want to say for sure.
No.
I'm wrong a lot.
FlyQuest.
So. Yeah.
Yeah, you're 1 and 3. Definitely not for sure.
They don't know that.
Good.
Except when we told them. But
That's right. Well,
That's the
hopefully
last
we're
one?
2-0 next week. That's the last one. That's all I got for you.
Great questions, as always.
Oh, inspirational.
A lot of different combinations of who people think are going to win finals in EU and NA. We'll be back Wednesday to preview those finals. We'll go way more in depth in those matchups, each one, who's got the advantages,
That's right.
where, but I don't think there's any huge ones in these ones. And that makes sense because it's the finals.
That's correct.
But we'll be back Wednesday. Eric and Matt, anything you want to say to the lovely viewers, Matt?
No, really, thanks for joining us. And
Yep.
we will be back Wednesday at 2 p.m. EDT, because it's
EDT.
EDT.
Right.
Wes keeps pointing out to me, the guy behind the camera, that it's
Yep.
daylight savings time or whatever it means.
No air quotes necessary. It is daylight savings time. Don't need the air quotes there, but
2 o'clock on Wednesday.
2 o'clock on Wednesday, we'll preview all the LCS finals. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Eric Kummel here with Matt Hempstead, and we will see you guys on Wednesday.